There's a moment in sport when you stop watching an athlete and start watching a story unfold. It happens rarely, but when it does, you feel it in your chest before you can explain it with your brain. That moment, for millions of people across Southeast Asia and beyond, arrived sometime in early 2026 when a 20-year-old girl from the Philippines started doing things on a tennis court that nobody from her country had ever done before. Her name is Alexandra Eala. And if you haven't been paying close attention to the WTA Tour this year, then buckle up, because you've been missing one of the most compelling individual runs in women's tennis in recent memory. We're talking about a young woman who started this year by clawing her way through a grueling 3-set final in Mexico, then flew to China and handed out back-to-back bagels like she was passing out flyers, and then landed on the red clay of Rome, one of the most ruthless and unforgiving stages in all of tennis, and kept right on winning. Today we are telling the full story of Alex Eala's 2026 season. Where it started, how it evolved, what it looked like up close, and what is at stake right now as she prepares to face one of the WTA's most dangerous young hitters in a rematch that has been simmering ever since January. So, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to Guadalajara. Every great story needs a moment where everything changes. For Eala, that moment came in Mexico at the Guadalajara Open. She hadn't exactly been invisible before this. The tennis world had tracked her through junior Grand Slam victories and grinding seasons on the ITF circuit. She was always on the radar, always described as one to watch, always positioned as someone who would eventually break through. But there is a massive difference between potential and proof. And on that court in Mexico, facing Hungarian veteran Panna Udvardy in the final, Eala finally handed over the proof. It was not a clean win. It was not a performance where everything clicked and the opposition melted away. It was the opposite of that. Udvardy pushed her into deep, uncomfortable corners. The match stretched to 3 sets. There were moments where the match could have slipped away entirely, moments where the weight of the occasion could have buried a less experienced player. But Eala did not flinch. She kept competing, kept fighting, kept finding something extra when logic said she had nothing left. When the final point landed and she dropped her racket in disbelief, she became the first Filipino to claim a WTA 125 title. That number doesn't fully capture what it meant. More important than the ranking points, more important than the trophy, was what the victory planted inside her head. She walked away from Guadalajara with something intangible but absolutely critical. She walked away knowing she could win. Not hoping, not believing, knowing. And that knowing changed everything that came next. When she arrived in Hubei, China for the Jingshan International Tennis Tournament, she was a different player mentally. The first round against Belarus's Alyona Fillet gave people a moment of doubt. 2 tight sets, a lengthy medical timeout, questions swirling about whether she was carrying a knock, whether the fatigue from Mexico was catching up with her. The tennis community is always looking for cracks. Always looking for reasons why a young player might struggle. What Alex Eala did in round 2 was her way of shutting every one of those conversations down. Her opponent was Japan's Mei Yamaguchi, 26 years old, experienced, ranked, and dangerous. What followed was one of the most one-sided performances you will see from a player of Eala's age against a legitimate professional opponent. She raced to a 5-love lead in the first set without facing a single break point. That is not a small thing. To be so dominant in a professional WTA match that your opponent doesn't even get close to breaking your serve for 5 straight games requires an elite level of ball striking and tactical control. Her forehand was monstrous, looping with heavy topspin and kicking up violently off the hard-court surface, forcing Yamaguchi to play every ball from behind the baseline at an awkward height. In the 6th game, Yamaguchi finally reached 40-30 on her own serve. A moment of hope. A chance to get something back. Eala erased it immediately, stepped on the gas, and broke her again to close the set at 6-love in 26 minutes. 26 minutes. A professional WTA bagel in just over a quarter of an hour. The second set showed a little more resistance from the Japanese player. She actually broke Eala's serve and reached 4-3 before the Filipina reasserted control, swept the final 2 games, and closed the match in 1 hour and 12 minutes. 6-love, 6-3. It was not just a win. It was a declaration. It told every player in that locker room exactly what kind of headspace Eala was in. But hardcourt tennis and clay tennis are almost two different sports. The speed is different, the bounce is different, the physical demands are different, and the tactical requirements are completely transformed. Hardcourt rewards power and pace. Clay rewards patience, endurance, and the ability to construct long, complex points that can stretch past 20 shots without losing focus. When the tour shifted to Europe and the red dirt, Eala had some turbulence. She battled through tough matches in Stuttgart and Madrid, even channeling her energy into a brilliant doubles run alongside Turkey's Sepp Sunmemes before falling in the singles draw to Elise Merens, a defensive specialist who knew exactly how to neutralize aggressive baseline players on slow clay. Those losses hurt, but they were also a masterclass in disguise. Clay has a way of teaching lessons that no coach ever could because the surface itself punishes impatience, punishes recklessness, punishes players who refuse to adapt. Eala is a product of the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain. She knows clay. She has trained on it since she was a teenager. The losses in Stuttgart and Madrid were not signs of weakness. They were calibration. She absorbed what the surface was telling her, made her adjustments, and arrived in Rome ready. The Italian Open is not just another clay event. Rome in May is something else entirely. The Foro Italico is ancient. The courts are surrounded by marble statues. The atmosphere is thick and passionate. And the draw is always loaded with players who are in peak form heading into Roland Garros. There is nowhere to hide at this tournament. In the first round, the draw gave Eala Poland's Magdalena Fret. Anyone who has watched women's clay court tennis knows what Fret represents. She is not a flashy player. She doesn't hurt you with power. She hurts you with consistency, with redirection, with the ability to absorb your best shots and send them back just slightly higher and slightly deeper until you start making errors. She is the type of opponent that exposes impatience in young players. The first set went Eala's way in breathtaking fashion. 6-love again. Another bagel, this time on the clay of Rome. She was painting lines, hitting through the court with controlled aggression, serving with precision. But then Fret did what veterans do. She adapted. She started pushing the ball higher, slowing down the rally tempo, pulling Eala into grinding exchanges that stretched on and on. The second set shifted completely. Fret broke, held, and took it 3-6. Suddenly, this was a completely different match. A third set on the clay of Rome is one of the most demanding things in tennis. The legs are burning, the mind starts searching for shortcuts, and the temptation to force the issue rather than trust the process becomes overwhelming. Eala didn't take shortcuts. She went back to what she knows, the heavy topspin forehand, the wide angles, the intelligent construction of points. She converted the breaks she needed when she needed them most, and closed the decider 6-4. So the final score read 6-love, 3-6, 6-4. It was messy. It was hard. And it was exactly the kind of win that shapes a player for the rest of a tournament. Which brings us to right now. Today, May 8th, 2026. The Nicola Petronelli Stadium. Round of 64. Alexandra Eala versus the 31st seed, Wang Xinyu of China. And this one carries extra weight, because these two have history. Earlier this year, at the ASB Classic in Auckland during the Australian Swing, Eala and Wang met in the semi-finals. It was a grinding, physical, punishing 3-set match. Wang edged it out 5-7, 7-5, 6-4, winning the deciding set convincingly after the second set went back and forth in a tiebreaker. For Eala, it was a match that slipped through her fingers by the narrowest of margins. A match where she was close enough to feel the win but couldn't quite hold on to it. That match has lived in her head. You can be sure of that. Wang Xinyu is not a player you can take lightly in any environment, but on clay there are interesting wrinkles to this matchup. She is 24 years old, currently sitting comfortably inside the top 35 in the world, and she came into this round of 64 fresh, having received a bye in the first round. No match fatigue. No physical toll from a 3-set battle in the Roman heat. She is rested, sharp, and armed with a game that has caused Eala problems before. She hits the ball flat and hard. She has a massive first serve. And she specifically targets the backhand side with depth and pace, trying to prevent Eala from getting around to that forehand. Eala, on the other hand, is coming off 2 matches. Her body has been working. Her legs have clay dust in them, but her eye is calibrated. She knows how the ball is moving. She knows the pace of this particular surface, the weight of this particular atmosphere. There is something to be said for rhythm. Tactically, this match will come down to who dictates the tempo. Wang wants the point short and sharp. She wants to step inside the baseline, redirect pace, and keep Eala from settling into long rally patterns. Eala's best chance is to do the exact opposite. Load up that left-handed forehand and rip heavy cross-court topspin that kicks up above Wang's shoulder. Make her play balls she doesn't want to play. Attack the second serve before Wang can dictate. Use the width of the Petronelli Stadium to drag the Chinese star side to side until the Roman afternoon heat starts to take its toll. Most importantly, Eala cannot afford to give Wang anything in the middle of the court. The moment Wang gets a flat ball to her forehand side in the center, she will punish it. The margins in this match are going to be very, very thin. There is one more dimension to this story, and it might be the most important one of all. When you look at Alexandra Eala the player, you see an elite ball striker with championship pedigree, immaculate footwork, and one of the most devastating forehands in the WTA outside the very top tier. But when you look at Alexandra Eala the person, you see something that statistics cannot capture. She left the Philippines at 13 years old to move to Spain and train at the Rafa Nadal Academy. 13. She gave up the comfort of home, the normalcy of childhood, the proximity of family, all of it, in exchange for hours and hours and hours on a practice court chasing a dream. That sacrifice is written into every swing she takes. There's a reason she looks so composed on court. There is a reason her face stays calm while her opponents start showing frustration. She has been forging that composure since she was barely a teenager in a foreign country, grinding through practice sessions that most people will never have to endure. But beneath all that calm is something fierce. Something that refuses to accept defeat gracefully. Something that, when it gets close to a big moment, does not shrink from it. And every time she walks onto a court, she carries a nation with her. The Philippines is a country historically built around basketball and boxing. Tennis has never had a true flag bearer at the global level. Eala is changing that. When she plays, Filipinos stop what they're doing to watch. And when she wins, something larger than sport happens across those 7,000 islands. She is not just a tennis player to her people. She is proof of what is possible. The 2026 season is not even halfway finished. The French Open is coming. The grass season will follow. More tests, more battles, more opportunities for the story to grow. But right now, on this particular Friday afternoon in Rome, the next chapter is about to be written in the red clay of one of the most storied arenas in sport. Can she execute the game plan? Can she avenge the Auckland defeat? Can she take out a top 35 player fresh and rested while carrying match fatigue in her legs? If everything she has done this year has told us one thing, it is this: never assume Alex Eala is the underdog, even when the numbers say she is. The court is ready. The statues are watching. And the pride of the Philippines is about to play.